Hello. I recently listened to the Sam Harris and Lex Friedman conversation, and the section of on free will was the section I found most interesting. I found all of it interesting, but that's the section I found most interesting since it's a reoccurring topic with Sam Harris as far as the views on free will go. And the first thing I have to say is I feel like perhaps the notion of free will is a misnomer or like it's misnamed, and as a result, it's thought of improperly. Perhaps it should be free change, such as we can change ourselves, or we can condition ourselves to be different, or we can influence ourselves, we can influence the world, or it can also include free narration, free meaning. That is, we can narrate ourselves, narrate how we live, or how we condition ourselves, or the influences or the events that take place in our enactment, or uh, the meanings that we derive and how this conditions or frames or continues further framings and further conditionings, further influences, and bringing about different courses of actions. So that's one of the things I was wondering about because I like to think, because one of the things that people who don't believe in free will think is they abstract sequence, like you have causality, then you have effect, you have causes and effects, you have things moving sequentially one after the other, but things are actually a multiplex of causes coming omnidirectionally. It's sort of like if you're trying to look at a particular entity at a particular point or position, then you need a sphere of perspectives around that position as far as all the different things coming to interact with it or integrating to make it what it is. And another way to put it is uh, the abstract sequence, the abstract something following another thing, but it's supposed to be a multiplicity of things interacting non-linearly and self-organizing into what it is that we have appearing and how it functions. So, in that regard, I feel like already the metaphors that are being used are improper, and it's rather more like we don't make the cells that we have. We don't make the embodiment that we have, the kind of creatures that we are, with its particular inclinations, with its particular tendencies, with its particular programs. We don't make its particular biases, its dispositions towards certain things over another. We don't make our entanglement, our enmeshment, as my friend Joshua L. calls it, with reality, but we do condition it. We can reflexively condition it or look ahead towards the future or towards a different end state and then reconfigure things towards that state, towards that future. We don't make the seed, but we can make the conditions for its growth, for its development. And one of the things that Sam Harris said that was interesting was he said people tend to think of free will sort of as like they should not have done something. Like they could have done other than what they did. That if they took an action and all the conditions for that action were to be rearranged, all the properties were brought back, all the positions were brought back, like you were able to do a complete rewind, then they would do something different. And I found that concept very interesting because if all the conditions were set as far as your dispositions to be a particular way or toward or at a particular time, the influences taking into account internal and external that are factoring in to bring about a particular end state or result were all set up, then of course you would do the same thing. There would be no altering it. But I don't think this in itself negates free will or negates the possibility to be able to condition or alter ourselves going forward. Like, at the same time, it's sort of like it depends on what you're thinking of as the concept you're thinking of as far as what's doing what. Like, is free will, as in this example, sort of like a filter that intercepts the Like it captures the arrangement of everything and then reconfigures it or tweaks it a little, alters it a little into a different event? Is there some feature of reality that's sort of like a loose feature that's not intrinsic to physics, so to speak? Maybe it's consciousness, because these topics become difficult because there's so many givens that we don't know what they are. We don't know how they interact. We don't know what they do. We're just making up cartoons. We're making up theories and approximations of what's possible with them. And we're letting there be an affordance, like we're taking into account an affordance, what allows us to grip and maneuver and come to some particular end state or conclusion. Like inherent in anything are a multiplicity of possibilities of what it can be used for and what it can relate to and what it can generate. You get novelty in this regard from this this particular circumstance that I've described. And so it's like I feel like Sam Harris is too he's too sure of what he's talking about, or rather, he's not sure because he puts it as he's not sure what people even he's not it does not even occur to him as possible as far as what we know about causality that free will would be a thing. And for any topic like this where you're discussing something like this, there's a lot you have to presume about the nature of the universe. There's certain parameters you have to put in place, certain constraints, certain limitations, certain possibilities inherent in things, certain modes of modes of properties and substances, modes of whatever is given within the frame that you're thinking about and what they do and what they are, that you have to presume or assume because you have a particular aspect of, or you have a particular grip or use or relation to, that you can come to a particular conclusion concerning what they are. And I feel like we're not in any position to do that when it comes to these topics. We're we're not in any position to come to these final conclusions on things without further consideration, without further ideation, without further elucidation and defining and considering unspoken assumptions, unspoken intuitions that we have. And I feel like we haven't examined all the intuitions for these things, and we haven't examined all the concepts for these things. We haven't examined the full, the full, all the things that are involved within the framework of consideration, including the nature of the frame, the nature of the lens that we're using. I don't know, all this sounds very abstract, but it's to say that the topic of free will is very difficult. That's why I proposed my own cartoon. That's my own cartoon. It has its particular limitations and it has its own particular assumptions built in that make it function where you get the result that you get. But I feel like we should go about things more phenomenologically, to true to how people actually experience themselves. Like Sam Harris talks about how he can actually experience how it's like to not have free will. He can actually tune that out. That can actually drop out. That's not the way he framed it, but you can that reality, that experience can drop out, and he can be left with consciousness. He can be left with just operating and working. I don't fully know how it is because I've never experienced something like that. I've never experienced losing the self. Actually, I kind of have because I've experienced flow states and different states of consciousness like that, where I felt united with everything and the self. I didn't feel like a distinct ego, but that's a different topic. Anyway, I feel like he concludes from this that because it can drop out, it's therefore an illusion. That's not how he says it, but that's what's implied. But that's like saying you can lose your sense of vision, so therefore vision is an illusion, or you can lose your sense of like. I feel like, of course, with the mind it's quite different. With the brain, it's quite different. Like that's like saying you can lose certain operations of the mind or the brain, and this invalidates it. This demonstrates that it's an illusion, that it has no substantial reality. It does not actually work in reality. But I believe that whatever can be shut off can be shut on, and while it's on, turned on, and while it's on, or prior to it being shut off, uh, it serves some sort of purpose, it serves some sort of function, and the desire is to figure out what function does it serve. Why do we have this as an illusion in the first place, assuming it is an illusion? And if it's not an illusion, if we start from a more neutral place of saying, okay, we don't know what it is, all we know that it can go away. Like, we can examine why can it go away, and when it hasn't gone away, what is it doing? Like, what is it contributing to us? How does it contribute to our function and our understanding? And I feel like that's a better approach to these things than coming to a conclusion of it's an illusion because it can drop out or because you can experience how things are without it. Anyway, I think I've said enough. This topic is very complex, and I'll probably come back to it, maybe. I don't know. Uh, I should probably say this more often, but I would appreciate if people would make comments or ask questions, or I want to get a conversation going. I want to get a further interaction going, and it might give me some inspiration for videos too. But just tell me what you guys think about this, and stay tuned. I'll be busy, but I'll keep coming back. But thank you for listening. Bye bye.